Hey everyone, and welcome to the weekly Unreal Engine Twitch live stream. We are here to continue the chats from, I guess, 2 weeks ago now?
Yep.
On 4.8. So we've got lead tools programmer Matt Kuhlenschmidt back on the stream. It's been a while since you've joined us.
It's been a while, yeah.
Welcome. And of course, Mike Fricker, everybody's favorite tech director. So we'll be diving into all the stuff that we missed out on. Back then, there was just a lot to cover. We went into the tools. We had to shoot the Ori flare, and
yeah, that was funny. I kind of messed up the demo of the procedural placement tools, but it made for kind of a fun little adventure. And
it was great stuff. Yeah. So if you missed that stream, definitely go check it out. There's a lot of great information in there. We're going to kind of pick up where that one left off, and then move on into what else is next, and preview 1 of 4.8 is out. So. Some of the stuff you can actually start playing with now. Mm-hmm. With that, let's hop over to the news, shall we? All right, so Marketplace content release. Each week we bring new Marketplace content to you all via the Epic Games launcher, and this week is no different. Let's see what we got in here. John changed the format of the blogs now, so they're a lot more like in-depth with descriptions of everything. So we've got an RPG starter kit by CB Production. In blueprints, RTS toolkit by, I can't read that
cool,
from
it looks
here.
like a Dark Souls kind of RPG.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I can't pronounce that.
Dalbanojo, thank you.
Dark Souls
Thank
maker.
you so much. And let's see, complete heal pack system by, thank you, Shelly. Balaz Victor. And then environment props. You know what, I'm just going to pull some monitor here so I can read it a little bit closer.
Control mouse wheel that.
Retro office environment by Clinton Crumpler. Let's see what we got. Super Grid Starter Pack by Zaorb. So I've actually been looking at this for a while on the forums, and it's a really great like gray boxing kit, essentially, like with tools that let you round off corners of specific things. I'm probably gonna pick that one up and use it. So
yeah, so this is actually like a full-on world building tool set.
Pretty much, yeah. We'll take a look at it here in a second.
I think we were talking about this internally about how can we take some ideas from this for our geometry tools that we want to work on.
Yeah. Well, cool. Well, awesome stuff. I'll probably grab it so we can poke around with it.
Yep.
Warehouse equipment by Dokyo.
Nice.
And character animations. We've got Robo the NPC by T-Pose. Looks like for all your robot fighting goodness. Music. Horror Atmosphere Volume 1 by Korovkin Fyodor Vladimirovich.
Perfect.
Wow, I did okay on that one. And we've got Ambient Music Pack 1 by Mailgrim Studio. And Electronic Ambience Music by Dokyo. I believe, yep, that's what we got for that today. Cool. So cool stuff. Go download those if you, if anything interests you, which it should, because it's all great stuff. And with that, also on the subject of Marketplace, we've got a sale on zombie horror packs. So there's 32% off of the zombies. Of course, he's kind of half off because half of his body's missing. But sorry, Shelly. Well, we got some 20% off weapons, 20% off environments as well. So if you're building a survival game, which Tom Lumen has actually got a great survival game set of gameplay examples right now. If you're looking to outfit it with great assets, you can go and pick up a lot of those from Marketplace on sale this week.
Sweet.
All right. So
that's great.
Roll back here. Dump. All right, so the May Game Jam has been announced. The theme is going to be kicked off next week. As you guys are probably familiar with them, we do a Game Jam on our forums every month where we get a whole bunch of submissions in, and we play through them all here. The Epic team will go through them all and rate them, and we'll choose the 3 top based on overall fun factor, visuals, and unique use of theme. And so May is going to kick off next week, and it'll be Thursday at the stream, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then the top 3 submissions will get a Game Jam T-shirt, which are actually going to print finally. We've been talking about them since October. Right. It's a long time, but I've got everybody's information for October, and I think it's January. So if you've won a jam and I owe you a shirt, I'm sorry first.
Yeah, sorry, a year later.
Yeah, but hey, we're getting there. I'm still collecting information. I've reached out to I believe all of you. If I don't have your shirt size and mailing address, I can't get you what you need. So shoot that over to me if you can. That'd be awesome. And we're getting caught up on those now. Everything's actually gone to print. So, well, except for the ones I don't have your information for. All right, next thing we got up here, as we said before, preview 1 of 4.8 has released. If you head over to our forums, there's a full summary of all the features. A lot of stuff we'll be talking about today, just a quick one-liner of it all, and our known issues list of things we know are actually in 4.8 preview 1. It's probably a growing list as we get more and more stuff.
Just a quick note too, like some of those feature blurbs in that list might not be fully active in preview 1. Like we kind of made this list from what is expected to be in the build, and some things are still getting troubleshooted. And
yeah,
so
troubleshot. Is troubleshot actually a word? Sounds cool.
Yeah.
Troubleshot.
You could say it.
That's weird.
Sounds like a video game move. All right, and so back to the forums. We've added a bunch of prefixes to our threads. So if you're familiar with the forums, a lot of people have been adding their own prefixes with the little brackets and then the word in between. But now when you make new threads, this is just an example of what we're doing on the events section with the Game Jam and Twitch. We've added them to just about every forum for you guys as well. The development discussion ones are still kind of coming in. We're figuring out exactly which one should go there. But if you're giving us feedback, there's a nice drop-down list in which you can actually say what kind of feedback it is. If you're looking in community content for assets or games, specific things there, you can actually filter by these prefixes too if you're in the forums. So you can just look just for the stuff you want to see. So definitely start using those. We're going to start using them too, so you'll see a lot more of that as well. I wanted to call out Rocket League. It's an Unreal Engine built game. They're actually doing a Reddit Ask Me Anything on the PlayStation 4 Reddit after the stream at about 5 today. So hang out for that. It's a little bit, well, I guess we end at 3, so it'll be a couple more hours, but swing over there and talk to those guys. Rocket League's looking really cool. If you're not familiar with the game, I think their Twitter should be dropped to the chat here in a second, and you can check out a bunch of information about the game there. And I wanted to shout out to the team, the 5 Pixels team, that has built a game called Seek on Android. It came out last year on Android. We had them out at EGX with us, and they just released on iOS today. So it's lots of character, low poly art style. It's a wonderful hide and seek type game. A lot of fun. Great team. Feel free to go grab it for your iOS devices or Android even. And with that, we'll hop over to the community spotlight. So first up we got here is the Arduino plugin for UE4. So it's funny, about, I guess, 6 months ago, a little longer than that, I was talking to Ryan Brooks in passing, and he and I were going to build a project that used Arduino and like something really crazy in art. Like we wanted to use hardware to control, to do something like mesh morph targets or something, just to kind of like, twirl a knob and have like a character like actually bend, like you're twisting his ear or something.
Like a media controller kind of.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I was going to do the Android side, or the Arduino side, and he was going to build the actual other. Well, it looks like Fusion Labs has beat us to it, or beat me to it, because, I don't really do much anything anymore. No, the plugin's actually here and available. Alexander and I were talking about this because he's building exactly the same thing. He's building a Power Glove, and it works pretty well. We were actually poking around with it yesterday on Alexander's Arduino. So really cool work from Fusion Labs.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, I think we got a quick video on here I can pop up and, let me get it onto the right screen. And all right, there we go. So let's see if we can get. Oh yeah, so he's got a light that's reflecting on the board over there. So as he clicks the light, you can see it on the hardware.
That's really cool.
Yeah, and then real quick, one more. Yeah, the glove on the hand, see?
That's pretty cool.
That's really cool.
Yeah. Love that. So yeah, we see that that overlap of hardware and software is just a whole new realm of possibility.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Cool. All right, so
you guys actually had it up and running?
Yeah. He's Alexander's got it downstairs. He's got one of those little flex resistors too, so you can actually watch the number and his little debug output go from 0 to 100 as he bends it over, and it's like, all right, everything's good. So
sweet,
awesome stuff. All right, next up we've got. Let's see. I'm gonna grab the video first. All right, so second time on the community spotlight, another Blade Runner themed project. So this is, I'm going to hop ahead a little bit here. This is the Tyrell Corporation.
Nice.
So if anybody knows me, Blade Runner is really close to my heart.
It's like the movie, but less blurry.
Yeah. Yeah.
I watched this just like a few months ago, but
You know what? I've never seen this movie actually.
What? All right, so I've got.
I mean, I could if I give you a list of all the movies I haven't seen, you guys would be like, "What?"
Oh wow. So yeah, I'll be bringing my final cut up here on Blu-ray and giving it to you
Sweet.
when I get back from Austin.
Yeah, it's not that I don't want to. It's just I'm hard at work making it
Yeah.
a little better.
So I'm gonna skip ahead here, just walking around the scene. They're building it out for Oculus Rift, actually. I don't really know, since it's licensed. I don't know that there's really what the endpoints are for the game, but it's it's pretty cool. They go through some of the detail here. There's pictures of some of the characters, like Rachel there. No replicants, unfortunately. I want to see somebody, ask another person how to, or replicant, if he's going to help the turtle. Why won't he? But, yeah.
Yeah, we need an origami. There's an origami.
Yeah,
somewhere, right?
Yeah. Move around, it's like, oh no, the horse. Anyway, cool stuff there. And that is from Hyperlight Drifter. So if I can pull up that. Yep. So there's a couple of other screens in here too. Just some, images thrown across the desk.
Yep.
Cool. And some other stuff. Cool. All right, third one we got up here is a really cool video. It's a little bit longer, but I'm gonna probably play the whole thing. So this is battery. This is Battery Jam. This is built by like 7 students or ex-students from SCAD. We've mentioned Everett Gunther on the live stream a couple times. His blog's been in the community spotlight, and he was in an educational spotlight, and he's on this team. But this is like Bomberman and Super Smash Brothers.
Yeah.
And with just this over-the-top kind of Borderlands-y style, character intros. This looks like an immense amount of fun. Really rich. Oh yeah, you were talking about how
Yeah, this is like a really good. I don't know if they used UMG or what, but it would be a really awesome usage of UMG if they did, because you've got animation, you've got definitely stylized text.
Yeah. So I want to find a place I can.
I believe I have their contact info. I was gonna find out what they did.
Yeah. So this is really awesome. Like this is like a couch co-op type game for me, right? Like
this totally reminds me of that. There's like a GameCube game. What is it called? It's like same kind of thing where you're in one arena. It's the same kind of view. Gameplay is completely different, but
yeah,
very popular.
Well, so speaking of couch co-op and GameCube, the original Super Monkey Ball, that was like the one where you're boxing and you're on that little arena, and so you're like all rolling around and trying to knock each other off the map. Many of my friends almost suffered serious injury from that game. Yeah, this is really, really, really cool stuff. So it's Battery Jam, and they actually have a dev blog on it where you kind of follow along progress. So it's just a Tumblr.
Sweet.
But they've got some animated GIF or GIF, depending on what side of the fence you're on, images. I really love seeing that too, when people start putting GIFs instead of screenshots. It's like, oh, that's what the game looks like. Yeah,
we've started using it in our release notes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's super.
It seems like it went away and then it came back, like in the last couple of years.
What the GIF?
Yeah, the GIF on the other.
Well, it was scarred by all those AOL emails, like with like people at the bottom. It's like smile, happy day, and little sparkles. Like people are like, these are terrible. Get rid of those.
I say GIF, by the way.
I do too, because it's right. Yeah.
Fun fact: the guy who invented the format actually came out and said it's GIF.
I thought he first came up and said GIF, and then he flip flopped on us later and said GIF.
I say GIF every time.
You just spell it out just to
acronym.
be safe. I should do that for some of the foreign names I can't pronounce, just to be in good shape. All right, with that, so great projects from everybody. You'll be getting your Spotlight badge and written up in the blog after the fact. So definitely keep an eye out for all that. Thanks. If you're working on something really cool and you want to be in the community spotlight, we pull most of these from our forums or just the Twitter account. So let us know what you're working on. It's really, really great to see all the cool things that people are doing with the engine. Yep. All right, with that, we'll get over to the good stuff.
Cool. Okay, so bunch of things to talk about. We have 4.8 Preview 1 out, which is really cool. This is still really early days for the preview, so the first preview is always like a little rocky. Matt and I were using it ourselves today, and it was like, okay.
Yeah,
a few things that we were like entered quite a few bugs.
Yeah.
But it's nice to have that out there. So it starts the march toward the 4.8 final, which hopefully will land in 2-3 weeks. We'll see. Our track record's usually around 3 weeks, but we want to make sure that this build is really stable. That's been a big focus lately, is just improving performance, improving stability, fixing kind of nitpicky little bugs that internally we complain about, and we've seen you guys mention too on the forums. So that's kind of a big part of this release.
Yeah, we've We haven't added on the tool side. We haven't added too many major features, but we focused on sort of fixing bugs and crashes, and we rewrote like a lot of the Mac input layer, just to make Mac more stable and things like that. So,
Yep. Yeah, that was actually a big part of it. Is Mac stability, just trying to get that up to parity with Windows. So I'll mention too in a little bit. We're gonna show off some of the other things that we didn't get to in the last stream, where I attempted to demo some features poorly. So we're gonna do that same thing again, equally as poorly. Well, no, I'm just kidding.
No, because
this guy knows what he's doing.
obviously that's why I'm here.
After the stream last time.
Watch now. I'm gonna screw everything up.
After the stream last time, I went upstairs and Matt was just like, "Dude, you gotta let me on the stream."
Well, no, I feel like
not
not me, because like I didn't write the ecosystem stuff. Ori and Dan
No.
should have been in there from the get-go. Just
Yeah. Well, it's trying to show like a lot of different things kind of quickly.
yeah.
So we're going to show a few more things of the other kind of maybe the features that you might be a little hard to spot actually if you've seen the preview.
Well, also too though, that build wasn't the same build that we have today, right? That's not the same build that people have.
No.
So,
Oh
yeah,
gosh,
what
no.
we were showing off yesterday, yeah.
Yep.
Or last week, or 2 weeks ago.
It was kind of
Wow,
like a
the time.
Frankenstein build.
Yeah.
Cool. So
4-point D. Not even quite
yeah.
the
Just
number yet.
mainline is always that way.
okay, so let's go in and talk about some of the other things that I can't really show too easily. At least we're not prepared to. So I mentioned last time we have for Steam VR. So 4.8 will include full support for HTC Vive.
Woo! I will be down in Austin tomorrow,
Really?
actually getting ready for the Steam VR event down there.
Oh,
So.
awesome, cool.
Nice.
I still haven't got to try this device yet. Apparently we're getting one soon.
Yeah, I hope so.
The Seattle office has them, so I haven't yet
They're
seen
so
it.
stingy with the hardware
geez.
sometimes. It's the worst.
Well, they're doing something cool, right? It's like free dev kits for developers.
Yeah, it's
which
a,
I think
it's,
is
a,
really
it's a
good.
pretty great program now. Granted, I don't know how many are being made since it's tough for us to even get a hold of, a couple, right?
Yep.
But yeah.
Yeah, I've heard nothing but good things about that VR experience, though. So also, it's confirmed that we have support for the new Morpheus SDK and new Morpheus hardware for PlayStation 4 in the new 4.8 release. So that includes 120 hertz temporal reprojection. So basically, that lets you run at 120 hertz kind of more easily than you would expect using a reprojection trick. So that's all implemented, and I actually got to try that a few weeks ago in the Showdown demo with Morpheus, and it looked really good.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it was cool. Done really well. So that'll be in 4.8. What else we got? Editor settings.
Yeah. So we recognize that a lot of people are frustrated by the fact that every time you switch project, all your editor settings get wiped, your layout, all those things.
Not really wiped, but like it's
well, not
like
wiped. They're
gotta
saved
set
per
them up all over
project.
again.
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
saved per project. So so what we've done is we started an initiative to move more of the editor settings to global, move them to a global area so that they're accessed by every project. It actually ended up being a little bit more difficult than we had wanted. So we're not every editor setting has been moved over. So right now we've been focusing on things like the key bindings and the layout. So the way all your tabs are arranged in the editor. But every release we're going to keep adding more and more and more. So in 4.9 I would expect a significant amount of those to be moved over.
just having layout and key bindings is really nice. Though.
Yeah.
Those are the most
It's really even like I use it at home and I'm really annoyed by it. So
yeah.
So that was one of the sort of, it's not really a feature. It's just like one of those long-standing issues that we know we wanted to tackle. So we got on it.
Cool.
Yep.
Other stuff. So code plugins. I want to talk about this. Obviously, we support code plugins, and I think I mentioned last time that we're working on making code plugins available in the marketplace, or Ray mentioned it maybe.
Mm-hmm.
So that's been going great, and that's still on track. And we expect to have the 4.8 final support for code plugins that could be downloaded from the marketplace. When that's available in the marketplace, we're not quite sure yet. I don't think that's quite worked out.
Yeah, I think that in talking to the marketplace team and Ray and everybody else, it looks like we're going to probably have, one of our partners, somebody else that's already got plugins either built into the binary or that we've been working with hand in hand available for download from marketplace. It'll be a little bit of a back and forth to figure out exactly what the trouble points are going to be, right? Because we have to kind of see it in the wild, how people are using it. make sure that we polish it out to be the best tool for the job. So it'll be an iterative thing for sure.
Yep.
At launch, during the 4.8 launch frame, we'll probably have the first one out, and then we're going to kind of reiterate or iterate on that until hotfix over hotfix, I guess.
So on the tech side, we changed the engine a bit. Like there's an engine plugins directory, as there's always been, which is kind of the built-in engine plugins that our team makes, or we assimilate from community submissions. But now there's a new kind of, I think it's plugins / third party or plugins / marketplace or something. And that's where stuff you download from the store will go into. So there's something cool here, right, that we really haven't had before, and that's that you can have these plugins and you can share them between all your projects. That's kind of how they'll work. So
Nice.
you can take plugins and you can put them in your project, and that will give you a project-specific plugin. But by default, you'll download these things, and they'll be shared between all your projects, and then you can enable them selectively in any given project. So that's kind of cool, right? You install it once, and it's just there. You turn it on inside any projects that you want to use it, and if that plugin gets updated or patched from the marketplace because it's a new version, any game that had it enabled will just get the advantages of that updated plugin right away. So that's kind of what we've been working on, getting sorted out. Of course, like the submission process it's going to take a little while to kind of work out what that ends up being.
Yeah, how it looks.
Yeah, it'll be a lot of manual process for now, and we're just going to work with developers to get kind of cool stuff available in the short term. And there's also talk about like how do we deal with games that aren't using the binary version of the editor, they're using the GitHub version, and kind of like, hey, let's say you've modified your engine in such a way that would just kind of break a plugin, like you've customized the editor in a crazy way because you have the whole source code, you can do that. So what we want, I think, is for you guys to have the source code to most plugins, at least the source code to the glue to Unreal, so that if you do change the engine, because we want you to change the engine if you want to change the engine, you can still get these things working. So we're having a lot of these discussions right now about kind of what, sort of stance we want to set and what example we want to set by code plugins, and if there any policy will come out of it, I'm not sure, but that's kind of what we're talking about.
Yeah, there's a lot of moving parts there too, right? Like it's I don't know exactly how the content delivery is going to happen. Like marketplace content comes out a specific way. Doesn't matter if you're working from if you're compiling from binary or if you're pulling you're running the binary or you're compiling from GitHub, right? You can just still go to launcher and grab the marketplace stuff and then plug it into where your project is. But
that's the goal.
but as far as the actual code side of that, I'm not really sure all the details on that, but we'll probably have a lot more info on that as the actual pieces come into place.
So if you're excited about building a plugin and getting it out there, I mean, it'll be soon time to think about how to talk to us to get it on the store.
Yeah, and we'll definitely do a call for submissions on those kind of things too. We'll start out with people that we've already been working with for sure, because we've got already a workflow of how we know what their code plugin looks like with our engine. Yep. But I'm sure that I'll be on here going, hey, send us your things, at some time in the future.
Yeah,
it's definitely a good way to get tools into the engine too. Just having we'd like more people to use the plugin system, right? Because there's a lot more things that we could expose in the engine, and so getting more people writing plugins and giving us feedback is also good. So
yeah,
this will help out a lot.
And I know that too on our marketplace we don't have the ability to release free content as far as assets. Don't quote me, but I think that we'll be able to do code plugins that it's depending on what they are, right, at a free cost. Like
I know, sure.
The things we've already got that are available out there.
We've even talked about taking some of our features that are more on the auxiliary side, like that are not really super game agnostic. They're maybe, say, focused for specific types of games. Yeah. Taking those features and let's boot them out and make them free Epic plugins or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. So they're not bloating out the...
Not by default.
If you don't need to have them, you don't have to, right?
Yep.
Yeah,
so those things might happen. Cool. So a few other things going on the platform side. We're making some changes for 4.8. So in the version of the 4.8 from the launcher, you might have already noticed this, you get 64-bit game support. So that's included now out of the box. You don't have to release 32-bit games, you can release 64-bit games. All the precompiled libraries are included with the download from the launcher. Of course, with the GitHub version, you could have done this before, but now we make it easier. We also went and included development versions and it's effectively debug game versions of the 32-bit engine before you only had the shipping version. So it was kind of this weird thing where you'd go and debug your game in 64-bit, and then as soon as you'd build the shipping release, that was actually a 32-bit game. So if you happen to have any kind of problem that would only surface in a 32-bit build, you had no way to debug it with the launcher version of the engine. So we've corrected that, and Ben Marsh worked on that and did a great job and got that in for 4.8 as well. So just some kind of nice little things there. I know a lot of people that asked for 64-bit runtime support too, so pretty cool to get that in, I think.
Nice.
Some other platform stuff, just get through these ones real quick since they're hard to show. We made Android a lot faster for cooking and packaging. It was requested a lot and something that I cared about a lot and the platform team really cared about. So they've improved incremental cooking. So while you have the editor open and you're making changes and you're repackaging and recooking to your device, only things that change will get pushed down, so it should be much faster. So that's in 4.8 as well. And we have ideas to make it even faster in the future. iOS for Windows. So even in 4.7, we supported iOS from Windows for content-only projects. Now something cool where you'll be, at least currently for GitHub users, I don't know if it's, I'm not sure if it's for the launcher version yet. I'll have to double check on that. But if you have a PC, or sorry, if you have a Mac, and you happen to be developing your game on PC, even if it has code, you can enable a feature that uses SSH to remote compile on your Mac. So you can compile on your Mac, bring the built products back for iOS to your PC, and deploy from PC seamlessly. So you have a Mac on your network at home, just sitting around in the corner. You could use it for this so that you can basically do the full code development path for iOS from your PC in Unreal.
Is that using like some of the runtimes from Xcode, or?
It's building it on.
Because I've got like an old 13-inch Pro it's been a build slave for me for years. I can do this with that?
Yeah, it'll work. So
it's got Yosemite and Xcode 6, so I assume that we're in good shape.
It should work, yeah.
Yeah, awesome.
Yep. So the documentation is still in progress, but that will be in 4.8 as well. So before you could do content-only projects, now you can do conditionally code projects if you have a Mac that you can remote to, that the editor can get a hold of through your network.
That's awesome.
So pretty cool. And then finally, Linux. I'll mention this. I know it was one of the questions last 2 weeks ago that we didn't get to. Just what's new for Linux in 4.8, and so it's pretty cool. So Linux editor has been getting better and better every build. It's not quite ready yet. It's something that we're working on. We keep thinking, okay, maybe 4.9 it'll be at the point where we can release it in kind of beta. We'll see. But the community's been largely they've been discovering most of the bugs. They've been doing a lot of the work. 3D Lover, Zalius on IRC, has a UE4 Linux fork, and they've been submitting great fixes. I think Dimitri was saying that almost every fix that was submitted to that fork has been back merged into our main branch now. So thank you, community.
Oh, wow.
That's awesome, right?
Yeah.
Huge number of improvements to Linux coming from the community. So it's really, honestly, we don't use Linux here at Epic right now very much. So we're relying on you guys to test it and find the issues, and we're relying on you guys to help with the development of it. It's certainly for you, and while we do have QA resources testing it daily now, and they'll find additional bugs, it's hard for us to keep up with our current priorities. So, but it's getting there, and it's mostly thanks to you guys. So I really appreciate that, because it's really exciting to have this product that's actually taking shape, and there's kind of another cool bit to it too, right? The launcher will soon, eventually be available on Mac. We're hoping that, on Linux.
I was like, eventually.
It's on Mac. Yeah. So that's might appear sometime in the next few months, maybe
great.
less. Yep.
Yeah, it's really cool to see that. That's the Linux community is just going. That's what they do. They go DIY on everything, right?
Yep.
You've got
awesome.
source. All right, give it. We'll figure it out. Really, really cool. I wish I had the know-how to do that.
Some other stuff in Linux Dimitri wanted me to mention. So the UI issues that people are having have been greatly improved. That's thanks to the community. We fixed some performance issues with the UI, so it should feel a lot more snappy and responsive, like the Windows and Mac counterparts. And we've fixed some third-party features, not where like speed tree and the auto convex collision tool. Like these third-party features just weren't built for Linux and integrated are now working. There's probably some more that we still have to do, but so it's gaining parity with the other desktop platforms, which I think is really awesome. Okay, so I'll stop rambling now for a second, and Matt is going to try and show off some of the other cool stuff in 4.8.
I'm not going to try.
We'll just do it live. See how it goes.
How do you start the editor?
Yeah,
No,
it should be able to.
You got to drag it over to the other screen, though.
Oh,
So you have to Control-Delete to log in.
Right. So this is the viewport. No, I'm just kidding. Okay. All right, so yeah, I want to talk about some of the UI, the UI or the UMG UI features. If I see some people in the Twitch stream, they don't know. If you don't know what UMG is, called Unreal Motion Graphics, but it's our UI system for making game UI. And one of the features we added was, well, I'll talk about. I'll just go into it. So this is your basic widget.
Oh, you prepared this.
I've prepared
Oh,
this.
I
I've
see.
made a prepare, but this is some really basic, like I dragged a couple of buttons in, I duplicated them, whatever. But I wanted to show off the animation features. So obviously, our animation features have been lacking in the past, but now we've added some more tools. So now there's a curve editor in here. So everybody's been asking for a curve editor. We finally added it.
It's really important.
Yeah, really, you can't do much without a curve editor. So
You can try to program it, but
well, yeah, I mean, you could have always added keyframes, but sort of you need to be able to create, like, move the tangents and sort of have more control. So you need a curve editor for that. Anyway, to use the curve editor, it's the same way you use the rest of the tool. You can just add keys like normal. In this case, I turn on auto key, and another cool feature we had is you can just drag stuff around now. So I'm just going to move stuff. I'm going to drag it.
So because you have auto key on,
Because I have auto key on, it's
Oh,
creating
nice.
keyframes.
the editor's detecting that you've
So
did something.
of course, when I scrub, it does that, right? And then I can
Hey.
go to the curve editor and I can see the keys.
Hey.
So you see,
So
yeah.
nice.
So you can see X, Y,
Oh,
and Z.
this is so nice.
And actually, this is not just X, Y, and Z. This is left, top, right, bottom. We need to do more work here. This isn't done. Like, for example, it's sort of hard to make the connection between which one's left, top, right, bottom. Right now it would be coded, so this would be red, green, yellow, and whatever that other color is. I guess another red. So anyway, there's a lot of work to do here. We're not done. We're not calling this done. But see, now you can change the tangent handles. And you could create easing and things like that, and
Yeah.
you can.
And I see we have the new transport toolbar at the bottom, so you
Yeah,
can make
so
it move.
now, like I've done, let me just add a couple of more modifications here. Oh, sorry, it's hard to see from so far away. So you can do stuff like this. So if you want to preview this now, you can.
So awesome.
Or how do I? There's the loop. Okay. Yeah. So you see, you can preview it now, but before there was really no easy way to preview it because you had to go into Pi
You had to
and,
play the
and
game.
run it. Yeah, you had to play the game. You still probably want to preview it that way in some way so that you can see what you've done. So anyway, so that's the curve editor. You might have also noticed that we've added snapping, so you can snap to different time values now. So before it was really hard to actually get on exact time values. I don't know, when we started, this is, by the way, a lot of you guys also ask about Sequencer. This is essentially a version of Sequencer. And for some reason, when we started Sequencer, we didn't do snapping very early on. And it's probably something we should have done a lot earlier. But Frank has sort of taken over Sequencer development, and he's added a lot of features to UMG. So you can like change snapping values and things like that.
Awesome.
Yeah, so you can.
There's
snap
that
to
new
different-
snap drop down too. I
Oh,
noticed
what
next to
happened?
auto key.
Yeah, this turns on and off snapping, so you can disable snapping.
So what's the drop down next to it then?
This should be the time values that
No,
you
to the
snap
left,
to.
the little arrow.
Oh, this is a bunch of snap settings.
Oh, nice.
I see. So you can snap right to other keys,
Yeah,
not just to time
these
values.
need better tooltips and things, but
Yeah.
we've taken a look at other editors and we've sort of
Very cool.
yeah. This will continue to get better over time. Apparently this point this 10 is not good. Anyway, now I've broken it completely.
There you go.
Anyway, preview build kind of shenanigans going on right now.
It's probably the time interval is so large you had to drag way
Yeah,
further.
yeah. So, but we're gonna keep making improvements to this. This is by all means not done, so
Yeah.
don't worry.
Still pretty great.
Yeah, having the curve editor in there is kind of a must-have, I feel like.
Cool.
Okay, so another thing we added was split screen support, and so the way this works is that you can. The first thing you do, if you don't know how to create split screen, there's many ways,
Right
but
over there.
an easy way to create split screen is to just add in a begin play. This is in the game. This is in the game the game mode. You can just create a player. So that's how you start split screen if you don't know.
Creator player just means like
You just add another
pretend
player.
someone joined the game.
Yeah, exactly.
And they got their own
And
controller.
you can do this in code too. There's many ways you'd want to script this. This is just a test that I've done just to make sure we have 2 players. And now in your player controller, when it begins play, remember there's a player controller for every player. So if you have split screen, you have 2 player controllers. So what this does is it creates a new blueprint widget, which is this widget that I've got here, and you add it to a specific player screen. In this case, it's the screen for the player. It's important to note that there's also the add to viewport, which has always existed. This is still there because you could have sometimes want like a main menu or whatever that's the whole screen regardless of how many players there are. So add to viewport is for the whole screen, not for each player. Anyway, you give it a reference to the player controller right here, and then you just, this is all you have to do. You just add it to the current player controller screen, and then assuming everything is set up and ready to go, you can see the 2 UIs here.
Awesome.
Yeah, so I
Yep. That was
don't
really
have another
cumbersome to
mouse
set up
or anything
before.
to control the other player, but yeah. So now you can have you can have two, and you can click on them individually. And of course, depending on your game, it's whether or not you have a cursor and whatever. So, but that's basically split screen. So everything when you're programming for split screen, you do have to be aware of like what player clicked on what, and so things like that. So you have to remember that as you program, you kind of have to know which player is doing what. But that's all why you pass in the reference to the self, so you know which player controller is bound to the specific widgets.
You're setting that up on the player controller.
Yeah,
right
this
now.
is a
Got it.
player controller itself, right? And when the player controller begins playing, I'm going to add
So if
the UI.
something else were to trigger this UI, you would want to find the player controller associated.
Yeah, there's always
Got it.
there's usually it's fairly easy to get the player controller.
Yeah.
And you can also get different player controllers.
Split screen preview.
Split screen preview.
in the chat.
Yeah.
Oh, I want to mention too, since you're looking at begin play, one of the other cool things we did for 4.8 is we made components terminology more similar. So like rather than initialize component being in your
Oh, is it
component
called begin
blueprints,
play
it's
now?
begin play.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
so
fantastic.
Just things kind of map the same between both, so there's less weirdness. Every release we try to make things less weird.
Yeah. So that's see what else did we do for UMG?
Drag and drop.
Yeah, so I don't have an example of this, but we added full screen drag and drop, which means that drag and drop will now work properly in true full screen mode. The reason why these things kind of is like, why didn't you just support this from the beginning? The sort of a brief history is that Slate is our UI system written in C++ that sort of is the driving factor behind UMG. So every time you create a UMG widget, it's actually creating a Slate widget under the hood. Slate was originally sort of implemented for the editor where menus and all these things, these are separate windows, they can come and go whenever they want. In full screen games, you can't do that. And on consoles, like there's only one window. You can't switch between them or else it loses context and all kinds of bad things happen, causes crashes or whatever. So we're sort of catching up, right? We're doing things like, making sure that when you right click in text box, it doesn't show this menu in a new window, it puts it in an overlay and things like that.
Right.
So anyway, that's why sort of full screen drag and drop is just now coming online, because it's always worked. It's just that the cursor like decorator is what we call it, this little window that shows you an icon of what you're dragging and dropping, which you can customize. It's been in a new window, so it's not really viable for full screen. The way that people have been getting around it is to use windowed full screen, which is sort of this new, in the last couple of years, this is games have started supporting this. So, okay, so I think that's. Oh yeah, I guess we don't have an example of the
Web browser?
Yeah,
No.
but
you
yeah.
can mention that.
So yeah, anyway, we know you guys have been asking for web browser support, and so we do have an experimental widget for that. It's not in 4.8, unfortunately, but that is coming.
It might be able to be in 4.8.
Yeah, we don't.
In
yeah,
an upcoming preview.
it's not in 4.8.
We kind of misplaced it.
I don't, yeah.
That's what to say.
It's like you walk in, it's like, hey, where'd
So
you guys
as
leave
of-
the?
Yeah,
As
that's
of-
literally
yeah.
what Matt and I did this afternoon.
As of
We were
this morning, we were like, oh, we want to show the web browser. We couldn't find it. Like,
but it's in there.
so
Sort of.
it may or may not be in 4.8. Depends on whether we can figure out the logistics of that. Right now, it will be limited to desktop platforms like Mac and Windows, iOS, and other platforms like that would come on later. Okay, so I guess that's all of the UMG features. Of course, there's a huge amount of bug fixes and things like that.
Yeah, the number of bugs I've seen
Yeah.
squashed in the last,
Yeah.
it's been really good to have this time.
Bugs aren't really like, you can't really show, hey, look how I move the mouse around, it doesn't crash. Okay, great. It's not really showable, right? But there's tons of bugs. Like, honestly, most of the stuff we've done is fixed bugs this time around. Oh yeah. So last time, this is separate. This is a new topic. Last for 4.7 we
Switching
added
gears.
this. What?
Switching gears.
Switching gears.
Switching gears.
Switching gears.
This one's really cool though, I think.
Yeah, yeah. So last for 4.7 we added this new way that you can build up components in the world without adding a blueprint. So in this example, I've dragged an empty actor. I'll just do it again, just in case no one knew what I was doing. Why is there? Well, this is another bug before it.
No, you're in game mode.
Oh, I'm in game mode. Okay, so anyway, I create an empty actor, and I can add a component to it. So in this case, I'm going to add a light. And I can name it, which I'm not going to do, and then I can move it around, right? And so we've had that in 4.7. One of the problems was that when you create a blueprint of it, so like say I want to reuse this thing. That's why you want to add a
Reuse it
blueprint
or
add
add
code to it, whatever.
Yeah.
Now, before in 4.7, if you clicked on an inherited component from a blueprint, these would all be grayed out. You could look at them, but you couldn't make changes to the instance. So now you can make changes. So I can up the intensity to something
All your
crazy or
variables
whatever.
in runtime, you can actually go back.
I don't know why it's not working.
It did. Just needs brighter.
Yeah, so I could get crazy with it, right?
Getting crazy with it.
Right, and so
Kuhlenschmidt.
yeah, I like to.
Yeah, so this is really cool because before you wouldn't be able to get at any of these properties on instances of objects.
Yeah.
And
So there's the green.
as soon as we add it in world component editing, we realized we didn't quite have the tech ready
So yeah.
to do per instance blueprint component modification because it's just a lot of.
So this was in 4.7, and at the
At one
last
point it
minute
was,
we
yeah.
decided, not at the last minute, but a couple weeks before we released 4.7, we decided there was too many bugs with it. We didn't feel like we could make it stable, so we removed it. And also, so now I've made these changes, right? This would only be for this instance, but I could also propagate those changes, and you've been able to do this before, but just you've never been able to add a blueprint, but you can apply changes to the blueprint. So now, anytime you drag, this blueprint in, now you get this green light anywhere you want, right? So that's a feature that a lot of people on the forums and Answer Hub were like, well, how come I can't change the values of these inherited components? Well, now you can.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Cool.
Okay, switching gears again. I'm just burning through these features.
Show off a few more cool features.
Yeah,
little
yeah.
features.
So another cool thing we added, Mike Noland, who's
In the chat
always
right now.
always in the chat,
chat.
always very helpful. Added this cool thing now where you can shift between open windows. So let's say you're working on a single screen
so
monitor or
nice.
whatever. So now you have all these different, you can just, it's sort of like in Visual Studio if you're
Yeah.
familiar with it. So now you don't know
Or-
which tab you're at. So yeah, you can
Or
get a
just
preview.
Alt
Or
tab on the
Windows.
desktop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's
It's like
Control
Alt
tab,
tab.
right?
But it's Control tab in ours because Alt tab would obviously tell Windows to do whatever. So this is just a small little feature, but it's
Super
pretty
useful.
pretty useful and pretty convenient.
And you can just like Windows, you can just flick Control Tab real quick, and it
Yeah.
bops back and forth
Yeah.
between what you're doing last.
So here I'm just flicking real
Really
quick.
nice.
There's another cool thing, like on the side you also get these other windows. Normally you'd have to go up to the window menu to see these, but now here you can get these other windows. Like if I wanted to open the levels window, I could just do it there by holding down
Yeah.
Control Tab and moving between it.
So the tab window switching works for asset editor window.
Asset editor window.
tabs,
So yeah, so anything that you edit through the content browser will
Yep.
be this, and then all the other smaller windows. I don't want to call them minor because they're very important, but the smaller
Auxiliary.
windows are on in the tool windows section here. So.
Cool.
Yep. Do you want to explain the asset size mapper?
Sure. Okay. Here, let me grab this for a second. I'll show off. So this is kind of a little feature we added. We're doing some look at performance. We're actually looking at performance in Fortnite, and we want some tools to just manage memory. And it's kind of a funny story. Oh, wait, this has starter. Oh, it's kind of a different content set that I was expecting. That's fine. We wanted a way to just kind of see how much memory something was using, and Unreal's always had tools to look at memory usage for things, and then we have various different ways to look at memory usage. But most of it's kind of like log files and kind of like recompile the engine with memory memory statistics on and then dump all this data. It's a little bit advanced. So we added this thing called size map that lets you just see, hey, look, this blueprint example game mode, it's using 4.8 megs. And these are showing kind of the assets that are directly referenced by this, because even though it's just one asset, it references other stuff, right? So it's helpful to know what other stuff it references. This is the kind of stuff that you would see in the reference graph if you brought that up. So this is kind of the things referenced by this game mode blueprint. But
So it's pulling those and finding how big they are and then showing it to you.
Yep, pretty
Nice.
much. So you can see how big they are, and then you can kind of drill down and kind of see individual things. I'll show that a little more. It might be more fun to look at with multiple assets. So what I'm going to do is right-click on this whole folder, blueprints, and do size map.
Yeah.
And now you kind of see, like, I'll make it bigger too. You kind of see everything in that folder, right? And I can take any of these, like say the sliding door, and I'm just clicking mouse wheel up, and it's kind of zooming in, and you can kind of just see, look at anything by itself. So it's kind of like a fun little way
Yeah.
to account for memory.
Can you do that on your entire content folder?
You can.
Yeah.
Wow.
It has to load everything up.
Depending on how big
It
your
won't
game
like it
is,
very
might-
It has to load everything up, so you might not want to do that, but it'll work.
Winderstat or
Yeah.
OmniDisk for?
That's
Yeah.
yeah,
If you're
it's
familiar
KDisk
with those
report.
tools.
Yeah, so it's a tree map algorithm. It's cool too if you're we haven't exposed it to UMG yet. We might later, but there's a tree map. This widget is written in a general way, so you can reuse it, for different things if you want. If you can think of other tools. So one thing I want to point out here before we move to the next thing is, since I did this with several assets, so size map for 13 assets, and it says 45 meg total, you can see this special section called shared, and this is what the size mapper determined to be assets that were shared between all the other assets in that folder. So this is kind of cool, right? Because you can see of all these assets, I can see that they're sharing almost 20 megs worth of stuff between them, and you can kind of look, oh, so here's the stuff that's just shared. And you can imagine when you're trying to figure out what is shared, or why is this stuff getting loaded, and where's the big stuff coming
Oh,
from.
yeah,
It'd be
yeah.
useful. So that's kind of the first version of that tool. I think we'll probably do some more work on it later, like add proper thumbnails to it, and probably make it work with more asset types. There's certain asset types that don't report size correctly, so that's something that we'll keep like trickling in fixes to. I think because we've never really had a way to surface size of assets so nicely, there hasn't been much priority put towards making sure the sizes are reported correctly, so we'll be working on that. Cool, so that's the asset size mapper. What do we got next? Static mesh editing?
mesh.
I can show this real quick. So just wanted to show in 4.8, we have a much better automatic convex collision creator. I'm just going to find some random asset. This looks good. Wow,
So you have to
that's
focus.
actually a really nice bench, huh?
Yeah. Looks very comfortable.
Yeah.
I couldn't not.
Okay, so it doesn't have any collision. That's convenient because we're going to make collision for it. So we'll go to the auto convex collision tool, and this tool just automatically makes you physics geometry for this. I haven't tried it with this specific asset before,
You
but we'll see how
probably
it
want
goes.
accuracy higher.
So you can kind of set how much geometry you want. For convex collision, for performance, you want as minimal as possible to get the results you need. So just it's like 15 verts or something it's set to. And I'll crank up the accuracy. It'll take a little longer, but hopefully get better results. And hit apply. Shouldn't take too long. But the idea is that it makes a nice, efficient physics primitive for PhysX to use for collision. So we had this feature before. This version is much improved. We're using the new HCACD library. What is it? VHACD. Yeah, that's what it is.
This is taking a little bit longer. I mean, this will take longer depending on how
I cranked the
how-
accuracy
Yeah.
to maximum. Yeah.
So do we lose a wasn't there a third field before?
I don't remember if there was.
I don't think there was a third.
Okay.
field.
There might have been. Another option?
These have been slightly changed. I would say this UI needs a bit of work,
Gotcha.
but the values here, I don't think it was accuracy before. But anyway,
Got
yeah,
it.
we had an algorithm before that did this. It's just this is improved.
Right.
Okay, I definitely shouldn't crank the accuracy up.
That's
probably why it defaults to 0.5.
This bench is. I would assume that it's also based on how complicated your
Mesh
your,
is,
your
yeah.
mesh is.
Yeah, probably. You're right. Last time we did this was like with a little.
We did it on a test.
We did it on a cube.
Well,
Well, a cube. Yeah,
Yeah.
if you can't figure out a cube, I don't know.
I'm making a note right now that we need a cancel button.
And also, we need a better, more descriptive. Like, I don't know what this means. Like iteration 58. I mean, like,
It's probably status that comes from the library.
yeah, we need
but
we need
yeah.
a better progress, I think.
Yep. But anyways, If it ever does finish, the results look pretty cool.
Moral of the story is don't crank this out. But we were trying it earlier, and it doesn't take this long.
Actually, with 100% accuracy, it goes pretty fast with reasonably. I don't know. This is only a 3,000 poly model, I guess, but we're trying it with something smaller, I suppose.
2,000 polys is, yeah, it's not too bad. 3,000.
Cool. Okay, well, we can talk about something else while the list finishes. Let's see. Okay, we'll talk about this guy. So, procedural mesh component. I'm just going to talk about this a little bit because it's still really early, but basically we added, James Golding added this cool.
Oh,
Shelly, if you want to switch back.
That's actually pretty good. It got
That's really good.
It got
I
the
mean,
top too.
Yeah.
At some point, you might
the hollow
decide
spot.
that it's worth it for you to model collision instead.
Right.
I mean, it's up to you. I mean, I think there's a couple of improvements could be made here. Like this could be asynchronous. I don't think it needs to block the whole editor, things like that. But that's
Man,
pretty good, though.
Yeah, it got all the holes, right? Like all the hollow
It's
spaces.
pretty good.
Yep. Pretty awesome. Even
Yeah.
it even got the like holes. So probably you don't need collision that precise.
Depends on what you're trying to do. If you want to, yeah.
So if you saw the old version, probably some of the existing assets in Content Browser have collision, and or maybe not. I don't know what would have collision in this demo.
Yeah.
You'd think furniture would have collision. Oh well. But if you compare the old versus new, it's quite good. Okay, let me just quickly, since I think like
Procedural mesh.
Yep. Where should I do this? I'll just go and
Yeah.
plop that in actor. So
We're 5 minutes to 3 unless you guys have to head off to anything special. We can go over. You're good?
I'm okay.
I don't have
Great.
anything.
Cool. Shelley?
I think we're
All
almost
set? Great.
to the point where we can start Q&A anyway.
Cool.
So
Awesome.
Yeah.
I'll do this one real quick. So I plopped an empty actor, adding this new procedural mesh component. If you've seen custom mesh component, this is kind of like the sequel to that. The early sequel. It still needs more work. So I added that component, and I'm creating a blueprint of it, so I can add some script. So right now it doesn't look like too much. I'm going to change my layout real quick just so I can see both at once. So I'm in the construction script, and I just have no visuals whatsoever for this procedural mesh. But what I can do is kind of go generate box mesh. And this is kind of just like a helper function that James put in to create geometry, box geometry. So I'll give it some size, just like whatever, 256 square cubed. And then we can go, oh gosh, what is it? Section. Create mesh section. And this will actually say, hey, I want to create a model that can be drawn. And I'm going to hook up the triangles and vertices and normals and tangents that came out of that box creation function to this guy. And then at this point, if I compile my blueprint, I'm going to have a box. So this is made all parametrically. So you could have done this with a custom mesh component before, but if you've used that, you probably noticed this has a lot more features. The custom mesh component, really, you could just give it triangles. This one opens up almost everything that is commonly used in a vertex buffer and index buffer.
Yeah, you can even grab those verts too and like manipulate them and then change it to whatever you want it to be, right?
Yep. Oh yeah, you can just make whatever custom geometry. So vertices is actually just position values. Triangles, this is important to understand. This is an index buffer, so every value in this array is an index into a vertex. So you're expected to do every 3 indices would be a triangle.
Yeah.
But you can see how because they're indices into vertices in this array, you can share vertices if you want, or you cannot share. In this box example, there's probably
Well,
I don't think there's anything shared because they all have different normals.
They're all this hard-edged.
Yep.
Yeah.
But so I'm going to skip showing any more of this, but you can see how you could do something pretty cool and dynamic with
Question is this done in build or in runtime?
It's at runtime. It's
Runtime.
procedural. Yep.
Wow.
It's done during the construction script, though, so it's
Yeah.
it's when your actor is placed.
I think in future versions we'll have a way that you can update this stuff dynamically. So in a tick function or something, you can go and generate new geometry and upload it to the GPU very
and then export it to FBX, so you could have a procedurally built level, and then you
course.
can spit it out to something that you can.
We could totally
3D
do that.
print.
We could. Yes, you could.
Okay, I'm going to skip the last one. I was going to talk about the plugin wizard, but I'll just mention it again. I mentioned it last time too, but in 4.8 we have this experimental thing called plugin creator. I think it's turned on already for us, but this guy right here. So if you turn this sucker on, you get this new plugin button that a community member graciously, we give them credit right here, graciously contributed. it needs a little bit more work, but the version that they submitted was really good. Michael Nolan helped clean it up and get it checked in, and we'll probably help maintain it in the future. But anyways, this guy just helps you make a new plugin. It's not going to work in this project because it's a content-only project, but you can give it your plugin name, like whatever, clock, and then you could choose a template. So like I'm going to make a toolbar for a toolbar button that shows the current time,
This is fantastic.
right? And set some settings, beta version, create a plugin. It will make the files for you. It shows you kind of the files it's going to spit out right down here. And that's a starting point, right? I think it'll refresh your projects, and so you open Visual Studio, and then you can start working on your editor plugin or game plugin. That's really it's just to help you get started.
I'll use that internally because I forget all the
Yeah,
steps.
it's a massive copy paste job, right?
Yeah,
to go and set your first plugin up. So once you do it a few times, it's easy. But so make some plugins.
Cool.
Okay, so that's pretty much it for live demo. Let's see. I'm just looking at my list here to see if there's anything. I kind of have a list of cool feature stuff to talk about, but I think we covered a lot of the good stuff. This is just kind of stuff in 4.9 that will be there that didn't quite make it. Like for example, people asked about static mesh LOD transitions a lot, and that was implemented right after 4.8 branch. So 4.9 will have nice crossfading between static mesh levels of detail. Yep. So Gil Grib did a great job on that. Working on metal rendering. We did a bunch of C++ improvements. This is a really cool one that I'll mention, is just that dictionaries or maps, T-maps are now serializable, so you can have Unreal properties that are hash tables.
Yeah.
So that's probably been 15 years in the making.
Yeah. You can I will note that, I mean, I think we'll be able to do this for 4.9, but as it exists right now, you can't actually edit them very easily in the details panel, but we're gonna fix that.
Yep. So 4.8 actually has this feature, so you can take a T-map and make it a U property in your C++ code, and it should serialize and save and load. But like Matt said, you can't edit it, so that'll be coming.
You can. It's just really messy.
It does show that?
It's a text block.
Interesting.
And so you have to use the object format, object text. It's really bad.
Cool. Okay, so let's just go to Q&A.
Yeah.
Feel
free to dive into some of that if you.
Okay, so we have questions still left over from last week that were some good questions. So these are things that we thought.
Yeah, we got a decent number too. So anybody in the chat, if you drop a question now, I don't know that we'll be able to get to it in time, but we'll do what we can. So
before we do those, we saw on the thread about this Twitch stream that there's a question that was like a +1 quite a bit. Saw Matt and I saw it, and we're just like, oh, okay, we can try to.
It's such a big topic.
It is.
So it's hard to get into too much detail, I guess.
So the question was generally like, my game works great in Play and Editor, and then I go to make a standalone build or a shipping build for my customers, and like it's just doing something different, or it doesn't work at all, or my UI doesn't show up, or my object disappears up from under me. There's like, I don't know what your feeling is. Like every game probably has its own maybe reason. There's not like one reason. There's not like one bug to fix here or anything.
Usually if someone asks the question and says, my game doesn't work in standalone, but it works in Pi, that's usually not enough information to go on, but the things that immediately come to my mind are, how are you referencing the objects? The editor has a lot of a luxury in that it can keep around U objects, which are basically all the assets and things you see in the content browser, keep them around forever, where the game, they're garbage collected if they're not in use, or they're not even packaged with your game if they're not referenced. So in Pi, they're already loaded because most likely you've been editing them, or they're in a level somewhere. Well, if they're in a level, they're going to get cooked. But in different ways, you're calling load object on them in code, things like that.
Right, like in your constructor.
Yeah,
you just straight up call load object because you know
that
that
exists. That's not going to work in a game.
Yeah,
like this not. I mean, it could. It depends. Like when you actually go to cook and package, it only packages up objects that are referenced, and those that are loaded during the cooking phase. So if you're doing something magic where you're just calling load object and you're just giving it a path, that's not going to work unless the cooker happens to call that code, which it doesn't execute gameplay code. So
I feel like for us to help change the engine to make this stuff not happen as much, we need to kind of know the cases that come up, and we're just brainstorming what could be these cases, because there weren't that many explicit examples given on the thread. So like the load object one is a good one, right? Like something that we might be able to do is when you invoke Pi, hey, sorry, unless your game
Yeah.
thought that this thing was referenced, we don't allow load object to succeed, right? And that way you wouldn't see your
Right.
UI would be missing in Pi.
Right.
Just it's not simple to do.
Yeah, I mean, it's so convenient to call load object. You just need the object. Let's load it up. But
Yeah.
the way you're supposed to do that is you're supposed to have a reference to it. Like, so if you have an actor that changes, actually, let's just say you have a static mesh component and you want to change the material on a static mesh, and you have some blueprint, or there's some C++ version of it, and you call load object to find the material, and then apply that to static mesh. That's not going to work at runtime. You need to actually reference the material.
And the
on
typical
the
way
mesh.
is just in your object initializer. You know, you can get objects through your object initializer object in your constructor, and those will end up being references.
Yeah, and
That's legit.
there's possibly that there are some bugs somewhere, like in the engine. I mean, where we're not doing something right. I know there's been in the past with UMG where it wasn't working in some ways, and we'll fix those as soon as we find them.
Yeah, and there's differences between how play and editor works and the game works. Like the startup sequence is very different because a lot of things are already running in motion. So yeah, there could be legitimate issues but I think like would be good to know specific examples, and then we can think about how we can one by one we can think about how can we make it so that play and editor behaves more predictably with standalone.
I like the idea of having a warning saying you know this loading objects or whatever are not going to work at runtime.
Yep.
And also, like, if you're making a game, I'm guilty of this myself. Test it in standalone shipping before
Locally.
like locally, like
Yeah,
way early in the process, because it's not just about object references. Like the game, like the editor's not compiled in there, so there's a lot of code that you just can't run in a standalone game, and it's optimized. So the standalone game is much more indicative of what your performance is going to be like.
And if you're doing multiplayer, like you got to test standalone. I mean, we have great preview tools for multiplayer games in UE4, but you got to run standalone. You got to run a server. You got to try listen server. You got to try with multiple clients.
Nothing
gotta
beats
try.
the actual production
Yeah.
environment for what your game's going to be in for testing, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
it's a pain, but you just have to. Same thing happens to me where I'll have multiplayer working, I think, perfectly in a play and editor situation with multiple clients, and then I'll run standalone or run a dedicated server, and it's like, where'd my guy go? Or I'm not seeing anything replicate. Yeah, you just got to test standalone.
Yep.
Cool. Okay. So, other questions. Let's go. So, Linux, I think we covered that. There's some questions about Linux last time. Let's skip that. Someone asked about forward rendering for per pixel transparency updates. I think that it's on the list, but nothing. I have no idea if there's an ETA on that. I don't think that's anytime coming soon. Someone asked about DirectX 12. That's not in 4.8. It's in progress. Microsoft is helping with it. There's a branch. If you need access, you can get access to the branch. I think that when DirectX 12 is out, or sometime sooner even,
that'll be.
That's just going to be available.
Yeah.
So we actually currently have a GitHub branch that's just a DX12 GitHub specific branch that Microsoft maintains whitelist access to. So you can get access through them pretty easy. You just got to sign something. If you can wait a while longer, that will eventually all be public and and then sometime merged in as a full-fledged feature. Don't have a timeline. What else? Someone asked about Vulkan. That's kind of OpenGL next. I feel like this is covered at one point. Maybe we covered it last week. I'm not sure. But anyways, we help work on Vulkan. It looks like it's gonna be awesome. I think that it'll be a little while before it's fully supported in UE4. So just like Metal, that's kind of an ongoing thing. There's no specific build that you can expect it in, but looking forward to it. There's a bunch of rendering questions I'm just trying to get through. Someone asked about like temporal AA kind of breaking down when you use certain effects that do, I guess, like what, like world position offset.
Oh, okay.
Like things that cause pixels to move in ways that can't be predicted by temporal reprojection and motion blur. So one interesting thing in 4.8 we have is support for. It's actually a project setting. Let me see if I can find it in the UI. We have support for motion vectors on, it's in project settings, early rendering, motion vectors on vertex animation. Let me see.
By the way, I just want to mention while Mike's looking for this, For 4.9, I'm personally going to try to do this. Hopefully I can. I can't make any promises. I want global search in here.
Yeah, totally,
This needs
dude.
to happen.
Yeah, there's too many categories
There's
now.
too many settings, too many categories. So
And probably we need to revisit the categorization
Yeah.
a little bit too. It's getting a little
Yeah.
unwieldy. So here's a setting that you want. Accurate velocities from vertex deformation. So if you're using morph targets or vertex animation, you can get nice like motion blur right on those objects. We use that in the open world kite demo for the trees, I think. So it's a project setting because it adds some performance overhead that you might not want to take. This is something that we're always sensitive to. If we add a feature that affects all your materials, if you're going to use it, turn it on and you can use it. But we're not going to go and make anything else slow, hopefully, for that feature. So it's kind of a step in the direction of the question that was asked. Oh, what else is here? Got that one. Someone asked for ray trace distance field shadows for skeletal meshes. I don't know if it's, can you do that? Because distance field have to cache a bunch of stuff. It's about the geometry being static so that we can cache maps, for quick lookup. I don't know if it'll, I guess it could work with skeletal meshes. Like we could cache like a specific pose or two.
But not.
And then but if it deformed much, your shadows are going to look weird. So I'm guessing no. Probably Nick Penwarden or Daniel Wright would know better whether that's possible. My guess is that that's not possible. I mentioned the LED transition stuff. That was a question last time.
4.9, yeah.
I don't know, Matt. Do you have any? Do you know about this one? Someone asked about any updates to Media Player.
Yeah, we need to continue working on this. I'm assuming by performance it's hit and miss. I mean, right now the biggest performance problem is that we have to convert from this buffer given to us by a decoder and have to mem copy it into GPU memory, and so that's a bit slow. Unfortunately, the person who worked on this, our priorities shifted around, so he had to work on something else. But I believe he's coming back to help us work on this. So yes, we're not done with Media Player. It's going to get better.
Yep. I imagine, I mean, we're going to do a lot more loading screen stuff even for internal games.
Yeah, loading screens use a completely different system. I think we'd like to combine the systems so the media framework, the Max wrote, will be used for loading screens. Loading screens are a little bit more complicated because they have to run asynchronously on another thread because the game thread is blocked loading, but it could use the same system. So yes, we want to improve that.
Okay. Someone asked about Niagara ETA. I think we covered that last week. There's no ETA yet. It needs a lot more work. It's like close to kind of doing stuff, but not close to being usable.
We have some internal teams that are going to start using it for actual workflow, and so we're actually putting a timeline editor and things in there, basically sequencer, and so we're going to help out with that. But yeah, it needs.
I talked with Olaf in passing yesterday, and he said that it's actually got a lot more motion on it now because of some other pressures.
It's expected to be a big focus this year for us. Yeah, for sure. Cool. So there's some UMG questions here. If you want to hit any of these, Matt?
Lit materials is image. We don't have lit materials because UMG is in 2D and doesn't have normals or tangents.
UMG is the UI editor, by the way.
Yeah. So it depends. Like I would wonder why you want that. At that point, like you could use something else that's like sort of a flat mesh or something that's actually rendered in the world. However, we are looking at our 3D support, and we're going to try to do, I don't have a timeline for this, it probably will not be 4.9. We're going to try to do true in-world 3D, which means that right now the 3D component renders to a render target, which basically means it goes through the slate rendering instead of the scene rendering. And if we did true in-world 3D, it would be a lot easier for us to add lighting and things like that. Still TBD, there's a lot of complications with it, but it's something we definitely want because render target's kind of not viable on things like mobile.
Someone asked about animation curves. I guess we covered that.
That's done.
Texture Atlas for UMG?
Yes, we're going to do that. I don't know when, probably soon. We're looking at performance pretty heavily in the next couple of months. A lot of our game teams need UMG to be super, super fast. It works pretty well. It just, depending on the how complicated your UI is, it could, and how you set it up, it could get worse. So yes, texture atlasing. We do support texture atlasing right now. Like all the editors' textures are atlased. The U textures, which is what the textures you use in the content browser and materials, it's a little bit more complicated to atlas those since they're individual atlases or individual textures. But yes, we have a plan, I think.
Cool. And someone asked about an animation state editor for transitions. Now that there's
We haven't really talked about that. It'd be
It's
cool.
something like I remember
mean,
Expression Blend had one. They
yeah.
added one later for visual states.
Yeah, I mean, there's a never-ending stream of features we could add to UMG. We're trying to hit the most important ones first. So things like performance and just getting like curves and things like that, and UMG is critical. So we're gonna do those first. But yeah, I mean, that sounds cool. We'd have to, I guess, figure out how we'd need to have an example of how we want to use this before we start designing it. One other thing that was mentioned on here is the controller support.
Oh.
So we did improve controller support. Believe it's in 4.8. And that is, so now you can specify per widget navigation methods. So whether or not it stops or it lets it continues on to other widgets below it and things like that. And you can also specify, like, given a joystick movement, like which widget will it go to next. And I believe that's in 4.8.
Sweet. That's nice.
Yeah, I know Nick Darnell's in the chat, so maybe he can describe it a little more than I can.
All right, I'm just going to burn through a bunch of these so we can get to some of the questions from today's stream. So someone asked, can we see more features exposed to blueprints, especially stuff like the game mode stuff that we added for 4.8? Answer is yes, of course. We want to expose just about everything so you can do everything in Blueprint. But it takes a little while. We try to take the opportunity when we're exposing things to do a little bit of API cleanup. So it'll just keep trickling out. Someone asked about Blutility state. Blutilities kind of still work. They've been in development stasis, though. I don't know. I have thoughts on this, I guess, outside of just Blutilities, and it kind of ties into just editor scripting in general. Like, I really care about the editor being very scriptable and making it easy for people to extend and make, even like technical artists or level designers, be able to make changes to the editor very easily. So, with Blutilities, you can. This is the start of that kind of stuff. But I think we see a lot further we can take it, but there's not a lot of low-hanging fruit here. It's pretty difficult to expose a lot of the editor features for scripting, but we're talking about it a lot more.
Not interrupting. I saw a question that was asked. That I remember something I fixed, and it was anyway. Do you want me to interrupt you now, or?
Yeah, no, that's good. I'm done.
Somebody asked about color picker, gamma correction, RGB value.
Oh yeah.
We changed the gamma correction method in UMG. It should be basically identical to Photoshop and the scene renderer now. Before, it was using a very trivial, very basic POW 2.2 kind of gamma correction effect, but now it uses sort of the same gamma correction that our tone mapper uses. It actually shares the exact same code. And so there's been a couple people who have posted like screenshots of here's my UI in Photoshop and here's my UI in UMG, and they've been slightly different. And so we fixed that. So the color picker, hopefully the color picker now is sort of more looks more like what you're going to see in nice. Photoshop and things like that. So you'll be able to match up your colors.
Cool.
So anyway.
Almost done with these questions. I just want to catch, someone asked if we're going to support Visual Studio 2015. They noticed we were doing some check-ins. Microsoft has been helping with this. It's part of the work to support their universal application platform stuff. So my hope is that by 4.9 we'll have support for Visual Studio 2015. We're not yet sure what we're going to do with the launcher version of the engine, whether we'll support both 2013 and 2015, or whether we'll just say, hey, no, just switch to 2015 if you can. There's a community edition anyway. It's free. So we're still sorting that out, but I'm hoping that we'll have support shortly. Around the time when it's available. Cool. I think that's all from that list. That's from 2 weeks ago. So. Yeah. Any cool questions from today?
Yeah, let's see what we got.
Chance, are these the newer ones?
Yeah, the ones that say chat Q&A are the one we got pulled from there. So, cool. There's anything that we didn't already get to. Let's see.
Do you want to answer the first one?
What is it?
The SSH thing for iOS to Windows.
Oh yeah. It's not RPC utility. We got rid of that. It was problematic in a number of ways. It had stability issues. It was super insecure. Like, basically, you're opening up your computer for anyone to invoke remote code. So the SSH stuff is a new tool.
The second one is my favorite.
What? Oh,
Yeah, is Unreal why is Unreal Script dropped?
someone asked if why was Unreal Script dropped and will it ever be revived? I don't think it will be revived
No, I
in
can't
how
imagine.
it was before. I don't think that we want to be in the business of maintaining our own programming languages anymore. I don't think that that's necessarily a good thing when there's so many awesome ones out there. But that's not to say that we wouldn't support other programming languages instead of just Blueprint and just C++, but TBD.
See if we can break some of this
Anyone's on here that you want to answer?
I mean, I'll answer this one about the animation tools.
Sure.
So you guys, a lot of times, like I see questions. I watch the other chat streams and we talk about sequencer. So sequencer is sort of a. We're gonna work on it this year, and this is our new cinematic tool that's gonna replace Matinee eventually, and I'm hoping that we can have a pretty awesome version of it working closer to the end of the year. Not sure on timelines. It's a huge project. Mike and I have had many like hour-long conversations, multi-hour conversations, just trying to wrap our head around all the stuff we want to do and how the technical side of that and all this stuff.
Yeah, we had some like good design discussions.
yeah.
It feels like at some point, once things get a little like it's still very early.
Yeah.
But like we need to have the discussion more in front of the community, I think, too, and get
Yeah,
more
I'd like to
feedback.
we need to write up some documentation or like documentation, but like write up some notes on like what we're planning on doing.
Yeah.
For a lot of you guys, depending on what you're doing, if you're doing some very cinematic heavy game, some of it useful, some of it like you could already do with Matinee. I mean, Matinee is old and it certainly has workflow problems, but it's still pretty viable. I mean, like look at the demos that we've done at GDC and things like that. Like you can totally still do those things with Matinee. It sort of breaks down when you try to collaborate with lots of people on a team, and doesn't have those high-end cinematic features like nonlinear editing and things like that. So
Yeah, collaboration tools.
yeah, collaboration.
Things that we're trying to solve for
those are the big
sequencer.
things, and a couple of like seamless transitions to and from gameplay to cinematic. Those kind of things we want to solve.
Yep.
So anyway, I mean, it's a huge project. Not all those features. It's like somewhat like UMG. Not all those features are going to be in day one. Of course, we're going to be doing it in our main branch. So in 4.9, 4.10, 4.11, whatever, there'll all be incremental versions of it. At some point, we'll probably make more of an announcement on making it experimental and things like that. You can play with it. It's not going to replace Matinee for the foreseeable future. I mean, eventually we'll delete Matinee from the code base and have an upgrade path, but Matinee will be in for probably at least another year, I would say. I don't know.
Yeah, until we have a perfect upgrade path.
Yeah,
or really
until it's
one.
perfectly seamless to upgrade.
Yep.
So
Cool. There's a number of them on here about other AA solutions outside of the ones that we've currently got.
Yeah, whether we're going to have alternate ones that kind of have different trade-offs or
Right.
no
I
trade-offs.
think we had MSAA in UE3, but the memory cost of that is so intensive for like deferred rendering, right? That
Yeah.
I don't know if that's viable.
I feel like
anymore.
the vibe. So Penn Warden, he'd be the best to answer this properly. But the vibe I get is just that we like temporal AA. It's really good quality, and the trade-offs are sometimes unfortunate with certain types of assets and scenes. But I think the graphics team feels like they can solve those cases. So maybe what we're looking at is improved temporal anti-aliasing, not not a whole new thing off to the side.
Not adopting a bunch of others together
But-
and
but-
having a number of systems.
Who knows? I mean,
Yeah, I
we'll
mean,
see. It's the right tool for the job, right? Sometimes it makes sense to have a different.
I was personally been skeptical of temporal AA just because like
Yeah.
it's sort of like like it doesn't work with translucency that well. But then I talked to the rendering programmers and I'm like, what would be the downside of just using FXAA? And then they show me like if you look at the demo that we did at GDC, like it would really not have worked out at all in terms of the quality without temporal AA, like
Yeah,
the
it helps a
trees
lot.
and the leaves and things like that. It is probably one of the better ones out there, but
Yeah.
but it does break down for like someone mentioned with UMG widgets. Yeah, it breaks down. We have some ideas for that, but yeah, hopefully the rendering team, they're wizards, so hopefully they can come up with some way to solve the translucency problem.
Cool. We got about enough time for like one or two more. So if you see anything on there that tickles your fancy. Actually, the downscaling one, Nick's talking to them in the chat.
Yeah,
right
that's
now. I
not
gotta
like
pull
there's
that
not
up.
an easy way to do this. Like
What is the question? Just some people-
What
a way
about
to downscale 2D stuff better in UMG, I guess, when you shrink. We thought about this a lot, like in the editor and even in games, like with resolution, you often want to change your scale, and the way it works now is it just does a bilinear filter on the GPU, and depending on the way your artwork looks, that's just not going to be good enough. So we've thought about ways to do something like sort of using mipmaps or some multi-size image container where it chooses the best size image based on the resolution and DPI and things like that. But I think Nick mentioned in here, there's no magic way to make it look perfect. Downsampling something at all or upsampling, like it's going to have artifacts.
Yeah.
We try to keep everything pixel perfect in the editor. Obviously, that breaks down when you're rendering something in 3D and if you're changing scales. But we'll probably have some way to address that with some sort of specify the image that you want to look at this resolution and at a different resolution. So for things like iOS and high DPI. But I don't think we're going to come up with some magic algorithm to do this for you.
Someone asked about Steam CEF. Probably, so any support for using the built-in Steam CEF browser. So it's funny, we were talking about this earlier today when we lost our web browser widget. When it went missing. Just like,
find it.
It got into an interesting conversation about better pluginification of the web browser widgets. And so supporting multiple doesn't seem like a big issue. I think that we could support the Steam CEF as well as the Unreal CEF Chromium thing. I don't think that's a big deal. It'd be interesting to hear what the community wants there. I'm sure there's advantages to using the Steam version when you're on Steam platform there, but I'm not familiar enough with what those advantages would be. Cool.
All right, cool. Well, I've got to swing off to a meeting, so I guess we're going to
Let's wrap it up.
Stretch her out. Thanks a lot, guys, for hanging out, answering everybody's questions, and really looking forward to seeing what the response from everybody from Preview 1. I mean, it's been in the wild for a day now, so getting a lot of feedback on that forum thread, and I poked around it a little bit. So
it's a huge release. It's going to be.
Yeah, I think
the release notes are going to take a while to put together.
In general, we want like more previews to be out there with every release, just because it's a lot better. We get so much testing and bug fixing just from community members just giving us feedback. So
yeah, it's. I know at this one we won't be doing like the whole over Christmas last year. I think we had 8 because we launched and then we took the break and then we came back. And it's like, okay, let's catch up with those other things. But
yeah, that was really unusual because we went and grabbed a bunch of features that were originally slated for 4.8 and actually put them in 4.7. To make it kind of the release that we wanted.
So as far as timeline goes, we're still going to be a number of weeks out for 4.8. So you'll see a number of iterations of the preview releases, and we'll try to keep the weekly cadence. It may or may not make it under the last one. We went out last week, and here we are. So don't hold us to that too tight, but look out for the next one, hopefully shortly. And thanks for all y'all's help as well and everything. So next week we've got a EQS AI training stream on Tuesday. So if AI is your thing, definitely check that out. And we'll be echoing the marketing and business panel we did at ECGC with Dana and Wes Phillips, Will Kinsler,
cool.
here on the set next Thursday. So don't miss those. Those will be a lot of fun. It was a great little...
That legal one with Jay and Ken, that was really cool.
Yeah, it was great. It's funny talking to them. They want to come back in a few months too and kind of pick up where they left off as well.
Yeah,
so
really informative.
I'd love to get them back on too, yeah. So I don't know, it's interesting, the many touch points of the industry, right? It's not just tools, it's not just games, it's the business and everything else too. So with that, we will see you next week. Everybody have a great day.